This is Seagulls Player.
Paul, the club have announced their accounts, or their results from their accounts from 2012-13, last season as it was this week. Obviously it's quite a significant number, a large loss for the football club. What's your take on that?
Well, it's the cost of doing business in the Championship. It's becoming very difficult for clubs to maintain a challenge for promotion without investing the kind of money that we have over the past 12 months in the last season. The loss that we've seen is obviously significant. It's a huge amount of money which is being covered by Tony, but it is the cost of trying to get promotion, and that's something which all Championship clubs are having to face up to.
I suppose the most encouraging thing from the announcement this week is that the club are on course to fall within the FFP criteria and bring those losses, as they were, down to that permitted allowances, as they call them, of £8 million.
Yeah, the one positive from this set of results is that there are no sanctions for losing that amount of money in the season that was. This season, however, if we don't get down to the permitted allowance, there are sanctions, and those sanctions are still quite substantial. So we are on course to meet the permitted allowance, which is a loss of £8 million. The direction of travel with financial fair play is for clubs to be as financially sustainable as they possibly can be. In other words, to really stand on their own 2 feet without owners constantly having to write big cheques. And that's what we aspire to be like. And it's going to take a lot of hard work, a huge amount of effort on the part of everyone at the football club. But we're determined to move in that direction, regardless of whether we think financial fair play is perfect or not. It's the right way to go.
Obviously, in terms of sanctions, nobody really knows how they're going to impact the league as a whole at this stage, depending on obviously how many clubs fail the FFP result at the end of the current calendar year. But just give us some background on those sanctions, because people hear about a transfer embargo. What would that actually mean, and when do you go into it? How do you come out of it?
Well, first of all, I expect the Football League to impose sanctions if clubs don't meet their targets. I mean, we've all gone into the season expecting that to be the case, and I would, for one, would be very disappointed, and I know Tony would be, if the Football League don't follow through with those sanctions. We met yesterday actually in Derby, all of the clubs, all of the Football League clubs, to discuss a number of things, including financial fair play. And one of the very encouraging things that came out of yesterday's discussion was a proposal to do live testing of clubs and their financial fair play result. So at any point in the season, clubs would be expected to forecast to the Football League what their financial fair play result was likely to be. And what this gives the Football League the ability to do is to, in the transfer window, decide whether transfers can go ahead or not, depending on whether the clubs can actually afford for those transfers to go ahead. We as a football club absolutely support that concept of live testing. It's still at this stage a proposal, but we think with some work and with some detail, that could be a very useful addition. Going forward, the sanctions could be, obviously if you get promoted, there is a fine if you break the financial fair play rules. That fine goes into a pot which ultimately will go to a charity of the Football League's choosing. If you don't make promotion, then you would suffer a transfer embargo. The transfer embargo would work in 2 ways. First of all, you wouldn't be able to sign new players, which is obviously significant for clubs who are looking to progress if they haven't made promotion. But secondly, and I think this is a very important point that often gets missed, it means you wouldn't be able to extend the contracts of those players that are coming to the end of their existing contract. So that means some very good players who could be worth quite a lot of money would have to be released for free. And I think that puts clubs in a very, very interesting position if they find themselves subject to a transfer embargo.
So in terms of the live testing, though, that would mean, I guess, the window that's just passed, if clubs aren't on course for an FFP positive result, effectively the Football League could block those transfers.
That's effectively what the proposal suggests. Now, again, there's work to be done, and I stress that it's only a proposal, but it does actually give some more teeth to what I think are rules that take us in the right direction. I mean, our football club, of all football clubs, knows what it's like to go through a huge period of financial uncertainty, despair at times for the fans, given what's happened to us. We need to make sure that our football club going forward is sustainable, with or without Tony Bloom. And we're lucky that we've got Tony, and we're lucky that he's as generous as he is to get us to where we need to get to over this period of time by sustaining those losses. But it's not something we can expect or should expect Tony to do forever. It makes more sense for us to get our business into a shape where we can afford to stand on our own 2 feet and move from there.
Has it been frustrating for the board, David and his team, Oscar, when you're trying to recruit players, seeing other clubs perhaps not taking the diligent approach that Brighton are towards financial fair play when they're bringing players in during these transfer windows. Has that been a frustrating thing for you guys? Has it affected the business we've tried to do here at Barber?
Our priority is and has to be Brighton Hove Albion Football Club. We know our numbers, we know what we can afford, we know what we need to do to hit our financial fair play target for this season. What we can't do is to speculate on what other clubs are doing. If other clubs are paying X amount for a player, it's possible that the other 23, 24 players in their squad are being paid minute amounts of money for all we know in order for them to meet their own target. We just don't know. And, you know, frankly, we can speculate till the cows come home. It doesn't actually move us further forward. What I do know is we've been able to compete in the transfer market. We will continue to compete in the transfer market. We've got a very strong squad here that is at least as good as the squad we had this time last year. We're still in a great place to push for promotion to the Premier League, and we've still got a lot of games and a lot of points to play for. So we're looking forward to the second half of the season, and I know that Oscar and the players are as well.
I don't want to sort of dwell on the other clubs, but equally, do you have some sympathy for those clubs that are trying to adhere to the principles and the concept of financial fair play, but are hamstrung because of historic contracts and existing contracts with players that make it very, very difficult? I think there are a few clubs that want to operate within financial fair play but are going to find it hard because of longer term contracts that take them into this new period where the sanctions apply. It
is difficult. It's difficult for all of us. I mean, we've got one of the most sold out stadiums in the league. We've got our fans spending more on food and drink and merchandise than most other clubs in the league. And yet we're still having to fight really hard to increase our revenues and reduce our costs in order to meet the financial fair play results. So I've got sympathy for those clubs, but I'm more concerned about our club and how we're performing and what we need to do to comply, and how we can actually make sure we progress without squeezing every single part of our fans' pockets for more money. It's a real challenge, and it's a serious challenge. It's not one that we can ignore.
It sounds like the majority of clubs, though, back the principle, back the concept, and want the league to take this tough stance.
21 clubs out of 24 voted in favour of financial fair play and the way it's currently set up. So I think, you know, the suggestions that we've been reading about challenges to it are going to be quite hard to come by when 21 of the 24 clubs voted for the rules in the first place. You know, this is not a league imposed process. This is a club imposed on itself process that we've all agreed to follow. And everybody has got their own difficulties with it. Everyone's got their own challenges with it, but it's what we've all signed up to. We've all signed up to 3 points for a win. We've all signed up to 90 minutes for the duration of the game. Financial fair play rules are no different to any of those regulations. They just happen to be new, they happen to be different, and they are going to take some getting used to.
It made your job tougher, kept you awake at night?
Definitely, it definitely has, because you know, you look at the numbers and you look at what we've got to get to, and then you have to start working back from that to see how it's actually going to work in practice, while balancing the fact that you still want fans to come to the game, to be able to afford to come to the game. You still want to be able to make season tickets, for example, as affordable as they have been and paid for in the way that they have been, with free direct debit schemes and things like that. All those things are important parts of the mix in order for us to be a successful football club, and none of them can be looked at in isolation. They all have to be looked at the same time, and they all interlink in various different ways.
How difficult was it to keep that playing budget and even increase it by a small amount on last year with that shift that you have to take in terms of the costs and the administration costs, the running costs, the operating costs of the football club? How difficult has that been?
You saw from the first season at the Amex to the second season, the football operating costs went up by 41%. That was despite us increasing our turnover, despite us, you know, desperately trying to reduce our costs. All of the benefit, if you like, from the second season at the Amex shifted into the football operations costs in order to try and get us promoted. That's what resulted in such a large loss. And now this year again, we're having to maintain that football budget. In fact, we've slightly increased it, as I've said several times, but we've also had to increase our revenues and reduce our costs further in order for that to happen. And all the while, we've then got to come out at the other end with an 8 million loss as opposed to a 14.7 million pound loss. So trying to get our heads around how we do all of of that has been a real challenge. And yeah, it has kept us awake at night, but that's what our job is. That's what we're here to do, and it's something we want to try and take away from the pressure of our colleagues on the football side. We just want them to win football matches, and our job is to try and make it as easy as possible for them to do that by providing with the right level of investment in the playing squad, but also making sure that the facilities that they're using, whether it's the stadium or the training ground, are as good as they can possibly be to give them that chance. And that's ultimately what my job is all about.
Looking at the FFP rules, regulations, there seems to be, people are almost getting used to them. Not everybody seems to fully appreciate the intricacies of it, and by that I include a number of fans, even the media. It seems like people don't fully understand that whole process yet. Is that fair to say? I
think it's very, very fair to say, partly because financial fair play is being interpreted by different leagues differently. Even within the Football League, there are different rules for the Championship and different rules for League 1 and 2. And secondly, there is a slight sort of nervousness about whether it's real. Will there be sanctions? Will the league take it seriously? I believe they will, and I have to believe that because that's what the rule book says. So we are going along as a football club and as a board of directors and as a chief executive in terms of meeting budgets with what the rules require us to do. If those rules change, and I suspect at some point in time there will be modifications, because like anything else, if you get it right from the start, it's unusual, then we'll adapt and we'll evolve our own philosophy to fit the rules. But at the moment we are where we are, and I think regardless of whether people think it's a perfect system, and I for one don't think it's a perfect system, I do think the direction of travel that it takes us, which is to be a more sustainable football club in the future, has to be the right one. And it particularly has to be the right one for a club like ours that has been through so much and has seen so much pain and anguish over the years because of financial issues. We are in a very, very healthy state relative to many, many other clubs. We're very fortunate that we've got an owner who continues to support us as generously as he does, but we still want to be able to stand on our own 2 feet as quickly as we can, whatever that means and whatever form that takes. And for me, trying to maintain a healthy respect for our income levels against what we spend has to be the right way forward.